Can you think of a time when you really had to sacrifice for something? Maybe in college it was long nights in the library, or at work, long hours, after hours, slaving away. Maybe as an athlete it was the early mornings in the gym and the workouts and the practices. Or even for some of us now, limiting our diets of what we can and can't eat. I had a friend who desired to be a physician. He also desired within that to graduate with as little debt as possible, and he didn't have much money saved for college as he started his pre-med studies. So when he started, he also started a full-time job, answering phones at a bank. He would go to school all day in his pre-med classes, and then when his other classmates would go to labs to study or they'd go hang out with friends, he would go to work. He sacrificed those things because he wanted to graduate debt-free. He was a smart guy, so he ended up graduating in 3 years from pre-med while working full-time, brains that I don't have. You see, sacrifice happens when we have a change in our values. When we value something so much, we'll gladly sacrifice for it. My friend valued graduating debt-free, so he gave up his social life. Athletes value success on the court, so they give up sleeping in. Employees value career development and advancement, so they give up the other distractions that might come into their lives. Dieters value that elusive number. They give up certain foods. Even homeowners who desire that pristine yard, they give up their lazy Saturday afternoons and sacrifice that to work hard. When we value something, we make sacrifices necessary to accomplish it. In Romans 12, the Apostle Paul makes an appeal to us to sacrifice. However, his appeal is much greater than an appeal to give up sleeping in or certain foods. His appeal is that we would sacrifice our lives, that we would give ourselves completely over to God. Now, why does Paul make this appeal to us? If you look closely, he gives us a clue. In verse 1, he says, "I appeal to you, therefore." Now, for those of us who have studied the Bible, we understand that therefore is a key word when we're trying to understand what's being said, because it refers back to something that happened previously. And so we want to jump back to Romans 11 and see why Paul is calling us to this appeal, why he is calling us for us to sacrifice. Really, Paul has explained throughout the book of Romans God's great plan of redemption for all of humanity. He's explained how mankind has rejected God as his creator and king, and in turn pursued life on his own terms. He's explained how mankind is under the punishment of God because of their rebellion, and how he sent Jesus to die as a payment for that punishment. He explains how God has taken those who have been saved by Christ and turned their hearts from rebellious lawbreakers to the very sons of God. And he caps off this story by stating Romans 11:33 through 36. "Oh, the depths of the riches and wisdom and knowledge of God! How unsearchable are his judgments and how inscrutable his ways! For who has known the mind of the Lord, or who has been his counselor, or who has given a gift to him that he might be repaid? For from him and through him and to him are all things. To him be glory forever. Amen." Paul's tone changes in these verses from the recounting of God's great story to encouraging us to respond in grateful obedience and worship because of what he's done. And Paul plays out in the rest of Romans our response to him because of who he is and what he's done. This is his conclusions. Since God is the source, the sustainer, and the rightful end of everything that exists, then we should honor him in worship by sacrificing our plans and our purposes to fulfill his plans and his purposes. So to connect this to our previous thoughts, Paul is essentially saying that if you truly value and know who God is and what he's done for us, then we'll respond with a sacrifice. We'll respond by offering ourselves for his purposes. Now, how do we offer ourselves as a sacrifice? By renewing our minds, which basically means to value God and what He desires rather than what we desire. The sacrifice God desires is not a coerced or forced sacrifice, but an offering that's willingly given because we value Him. Now you ask, what exactly does this have to do with a study on biblical hospitality? Well, let me put it simply. At the root of biblical hospitality is a person who has willingly decided to sacrifice their lives because they value fulfilling the will of God more than their own values or their own agendas. In the book this week, we read that people value their homes as places of isolation, an oasis or privacy or a retreat. They value their homes as a place of relaxation, a temple where they can unwind. We value our homes as places of entertainment where we can finally rest, gorge, and just binge. In many ways, as the author says, our culture has set us up to fail concerning biblical hospitality because the dominant values and ways of thinking about our homes is at odds with the gospel cause for us and how to view our homes. However, can you imagine someone who has given themselves as a living sacrifice, who will value God's agenda rather their agenda? Can you imagine how they would view their home, how they would value their home? As we launch into this 6-week study, let's ask God's Spirit to renew our minds so that we may see more clearly the values of God and in turn offer our life, our homes, as a living sacrifice for His purposes and His glory.